Hi guys, welcome back to the Ed Recovery Blog YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about reframing your eating disorder thoughts or your inner critic type thoughts. So we're going to give some typical thoughts that you might have, especially during this time that we're all quarantined, and we will give a recovery-minded affirmation that you can replace that negative thought with. So we have 7 of these, so let's just get started. Okay, so our first thought, this is the eating disorder / inner critic thought, and it is you're being lazy. So how we would reframe that is that the world is so stressful right now, and so much of our energy is being used to be concerned about this global pandemic, and it's very normal if you don't have the energy to do things that you're usually used to, because stress uses up your energy just as much as other things do. And it's really important to remember this, that you aren't being lazy. There's just something that is going on that is a big deal, and that it's normal to be worried about it, to be stressed about it, to be anxious about it, and that's totally normal. The other point is that you are never lazy for taking care of your body or your mind. Any form of self-care or any sort of way that you're taking care of yourself, whether that be not working out, if that's specific to your eating disorder, or if it's just getting a few extra hours sleep, any of these things are not lazy. You are not lazy for needing a few extra hours of sleep or for your body needing some more rest during this stressful time, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, you should be doing that because you need to be taking extra care of yourself during this time. The next eating disorder thought / inner critic thought is everyone is posting on social media about working out. I need to work out too. So how we would have our recovery affirmation for this would be your journey in recovery and in your life is different than theirs. Specifically in recovery, it's often healthier to not work out versus to work out when you're in recovery from an eating disorder. Of course, there are many different situations, so that's not always the case, but if you do struggle with exercise or any kind of addiction to exercise like that, it's always good to take a little bit of a break from it, so that way you can develop a healthy relationship with it. So definitely try to remind yourself of this when you are seeing people posting on social media about their workouts. Just remind yourself that your journey is very different than theirs, and that for them it might be healthy to do that, but for you right now it's not healthy for you to do that. The third eating disorder thought or inner critic thought is my eating disorder thoughts are stronger because of the pandemic. Now, this is completely normal that your thoughts are stronger or are more difficult to fight, and that's because our eating disorders are used as coping skills to get through difficult situations or to navigate difficult emotions. So it makes sense that when there's a very stressful global event going on, that your eating disorder is going to be like, hey guys, I'm here, don't forget about me. And you want to make sure that you are really not leaning on your eating disorder during this time. So it's completely okay if your thoughts do get stronger, but try your hardest to recognize why they are getting stronger and to be able to take a step back and say, okay, they're getting stronger because of all the craziness that's going on in the world, but that does not mean that I need to choose or listen to my eating disorder thoughts. And another thing to remember is that turning to your eating disorder while in the moment may feel comfortable or feel comforting in a way to you, it's going to make your situation more stressful than it already is. The things that are going on in the world are so stressful right now, and especially if you work in the healthcare industry or anything like that, it's a very, very stressful time. And using your eating disorder to cope during this time is just going to make things more difficult for you, and it's going to make this situation even more difficult. So we would encourage you to try your best to keep your blinders up and to just make sure that if you notice that any of your thoughts are getting stronger, that you are ready to fight them, and to be aware that you don't want to get slipped into any bad patterns, especially during a time that's already difficult, even if you don't have an eating disorder. Our fourth thought is the eating disorder / inner critic thought that is, I need to use all this free time to lose weight. This, as we know, is not correct. You don't need to lose weight. That is not your life purpose. But to reframe this, think about what you could be using that free time for instead. So you could be using this free time to work on your recovery, and you could do this by reading recovery books, doing worksheets, journaling, even seeing a virtual therapist. And all of these things are actually going to help your recovery rather than hurt it. And you do have a lot more free time depending on what your situation is with school or your job. And so it's definitely helpful to be working on something that's beneficial and that's going to help you in the long run, which would be your recovery. Our fifth eating disorder thought / inner critic thought is other people have it so much worse than me. So this is really one that is common among people that struggle with eating disorders. You think that your problems are not as valid as other people's, and everyone's issues and everyone's experiences are completely valid. That everyone has a different history, everyone has a different set of circumstances, everyone has a different dynamic to their life, and every struggle that you go through or someone else goes through is completely valid to your specific situation. And so it's really important to kind of step back from that comparing and to realize that my situation, however I'm feeling, is completely valid. Even if someone else might have something else going on, that doesn't mean that they have it worse than I do, or I'm worrying about something that I shouldn't be worrying about. The sixth eating disorder / inner critic thought is I need to be more helpful to others. So it's definitely natural during this time to want to be helping other people. Really, a lot of people that struggle with eating disorders are very empathetic and compassionate people, and so it makes sense that we would want to help others that are in need or those less fortunate. But it is important to remember that you cannot help others unless you're taking care of yourself. So really what you want to put at the very front of your focus is your recovery and making sure that you are not slipping into bad habits or you're slipping into bad thought patterns. And of course, it's wonderful to be able to help others and to be able to donate if you can, or to be able to support and volunteer or donate blood, or anything that you're able to do is of course great. But it really is important that you need to take care of yourself first, because you're not going to be any help to anyone else unless you are okay yourself. The seventh eating disorder thought / self-critic thought is I need to be more productive. So during this time, you might have a little bit more free time than usual, depending on your job or school situation. And it's natural to see all of these posts on social media and everyone trying to get the most done that they can during this time, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you should not be shaming yourself for not being as productive as you think that you should be, because there's really no should in this kind of situation. We've never gone through anything like this before, and there's no framework for how you should be reacting, how you should be dealing with it. It's really just figuring it out day by day. And so really your productivity does not measure your worth, and it's really, really important to remember that just because you might not be as productive one day doesn't mean that you are being lazy or you are less important. You do not need to be productive at this time. If you don't get anything done that you wanted to get done when you have all this free time, it really doesn't matter as long as you were able to get through it. So the most important thing again is putting your eating disorder recovery at the front focus and making sure that you are keeping track of that, and that should be your main priority at this time. And it should be your main priority at all times, but definitely during this time when it's a little bit more stressful and there's a lot of outside things that we can't control. And as we know, it's very easy for our eating disorder to come in and say, hey, you can control your food, or you can control your exercise. And it's very tempting to be able to have that feeling of control. So you're, like we were saying before, with the thoughts getting more difficult to fight, because it does seem appealing to have something to control in this time that we can't control much. And so we really want to make sure that you are trying your best to focus on not falling into these habits and not falling into the traps that your eating disorder places there for you and tries to convince you that it will help you get through this time. Because I promise you that turning to your eating disorder during this time is going to make things so much more difficult, and it's not going to help you to be able to get through this time in the best way that you can. So those are all of our reframing thoughts. If you have any other kind of eating disorder thoughts / self-critic thoughts that you would like us to reframe, definitely leave them down below, and we would be happy to do more videos like this if you like this kind of thing. The other thing is we are still selling our More Self-Love shirts. We have sweatshirts and short sleeve shirts and long sleeve shirts available, and we are still donating 15% of each sale to the CDC to help with the coronavirus pandemic. So definitely pick up one of those if you're interested. We'll have that linked below, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye!